Hi guys, it's Mack within the darkroom with Mack Photos. Thanks for joining me for this episode today, where today I'm going to bring to you a little review of my main camera, the Sony A7R Mark II. Often when traveling for workshops and events, I'm frequently asked about this camera and my thoughts on the camera and what my experience with this camera has been. So today I'm going to do a little review on the Sony A7R Mark II and my thoughts and opinions of this camera and why I made the switch to shooting to Sony. For about 15 years, I shot with Nikon cameras. I had an arsenal of Nikon cameras, from their crop sensor, the D5100s, 5200s, full frame cameras like the D700, the D610, and my latest, most recent Nikon camera being my Nikon D800E, which was my main camera prior to switching to the Sony A7R Mark II. In moving from the D700, the Nikon D700 to the Nikon D800E, I saw a marked difference with the increase in the resolution. The D800E being Nikon's flagship high megapixel or high resolution camera. I did see a difference when I made the move from my D700s to the D800s. Definitely, in my opinion, I would say I saw even a more marked difference, or a tremendous difference, when I moved to the Sony A7R Mark II, being a 42.2 megapixel resolution camera. Not so much because of the resolution difference between the D800E and Sony, but Sony just truly seemed to master the high resolution formats, in my opinion. There again, I did make a transition from Nikon to Sony. At the same time, I transitioned from using Lightroom to using Capture One. So I do attribute some of that to switching over to Capture One and truly being able to see the difference or variances in the higher resolution cameras or formats in Capture One. Capture One does a beautiful job as far as for post-processing and the vividness of the images when you import them there into Capture One, which unfortunately I was not seeing previously in Lightroom. Getting back to the camera, the Sony is a mirrorless format camera. Those of you familiar with DSLR technology know that there is a mirror that flips up when you click the shutter that exposes the sensor to light, which produces the image in the DSLR. Well, that mirror is not present in the mirrorless cameras. If you look at the format or form factor of this camera is very streamlined. One of the things when I switched to using the mirrorless cameras, the camera alone, it can feel very toyish. And when I say feel toyish, it's completely due to the size of the camera. Definitely not to the build quality of the camera. This is aluminum magnesium body sealed camera, so the quality and build of this camera is great. It's only the size alone. You'll notice that I do have the battery grip, which contributes greatly to the ergonomics and feel of this camera. So that's one of the reasons I did opt to go with the optional battery grip. The other thing is because of the battery life. Those of you who are familiar with Sony or maybe have done some research on the camera themselves have heard that the battery life on these cameras suck. The battery life does suck on this camera, but With the battery grip, you're able to use 2 batteries within the grip, and I really have not had an issue shooting stills. I can actually shoot an entire day. I've shot 6 to 8 shoots within a day, and for some of the calendar shoots I've shot, I've even had more shoots within a day. And I've had more than enough battery life to complete those shoots. I get back either to my room or back to my studio to import the images, and I'm maybe at 20% battery life on the last battery, but I'm able to recharge overnight and ready to go for another day. I kind of went overboard when I purchased the camera. I actually bought 6 batteries because I'd heard so much about how bad the battery life was with the camera, but honestly, I really primarily only use 2 batteries. The additional batteries I have go to using them with some of the video cameras that I use. With video, it does drain the battery significantly, so you will need the extra batteries if shooting video. With this camera, it does have an articulating screen. So notice I said articulating screen. This is not a flip screen. It does flip out, up, or down. So if you're trying to get some low shots, you're able to flip the screen up, or if you're aiming for a higher view, you're able to flip the screen down. But it is not a flip screen. So it is a convenience. One of the features on this camera that I absolutely love is the electronic viewfinder. More specific to the Sony A7rii Mark II, it has an extremely huge view of your image through the viewfinder, which makes it beautiful when shooting and reviewing your images right there from within the camera. Prior to shooting with the Sony A7rii Mark II, I shot with the D800E as my main camera. I always used a loop when shooting on location. The purpose of the loop is that you can put this over the LCD, and when you're setting up for shots, you're able to get a nice large view of the image so that you know that your exposures and your color balance are correct prior to proceeding with the shoot. With the Sony A7rii Mark II, I really no longer have the need to carry a loop. And there again, just a tip for those of you that are shooting on location, particularly during the day, sunrise, sunset shoots, a loop is a must-have in my opinion. But with a camera like this, no need for the additional piece of gear. The autofocus on this camera. This camera uses a 399 focal plane phase detection autofocus system. What does all that fancy jargon mean? It means I can basically put my focal point wherever in the composition I would like. Unlike other cameras, both mirrorless and DSLRs, you may be limited to 50 or 60 or so focus points. So you have to selectively decide which is the closest to the area you're actually wanting to focus on. With this camera, you're virtually limitless. Wherever you would like to put the focal point, you can put it wherever in your composition you would like. I'm always shooting portraits or shooting with models or weddings, so my focal point more often than not is going to be on the subject's eye. So I'm able to isolate that focal point exactly where I would like for it to be positioned at. This camera definitely has pushed the envelope as far as some of the technologies within it, and I'll discuss that further. Another focus feature of this camera that I really love, because I love shooting sunrise shoots, and you're often in a situation where you're shooting in a backlit situation where you have a model or a subject in front of the sun as the sun's beginning to come up. It's very hard or difficult at times to lock on focus in a situation like that. But with this camera, you're able to focus it manually, and it has focus peaking, which means that as you're acquiring focus, you have these highlighted colors, either red, yellow, or green, that highlights the area of focus that you're wanting to lock onto. I love that function in this camera. Getting to the technology, Sony, two thumbs up to Sony. They have done a tremendous job as far as staying at the forefront of photography and camera technology. The society that we live in this social media society. So as we're taking photos and videos, we want to get those things up and on social media immediately. I shot weddings for years. It was always frustrating as a wedding photographer, because you would have persons with the iPhones or iPads taking photos or videos during the wedding, and before you're even out of the wedding, those images are up on their Facebook or Instagram sites. And you, as the official photographer, still have to get those images back to the studio and uploaded and color corrected or processed before you actually post those images on social media. Well, with the technology that Sony has provided in these cameras, you're able to do file transfers. If you're using like the iPhones or iPads and so forth, if you're using a phone equipped with NFC technology, this camera actually has NFC technology built into it. Not only that, this camera actually produces its own Wi-Fi. If you have an NFC equipped phone, you're able to just literally bump the phone up against the camera, and it will transfer an image directly to the phone, allowing you to post images immediately. So if you're at a wedding, you have that key photo from the wedding you want the couple to see, you're literally able to transfer that to your phone and upload it to their social media sites right there immediately. Okay. Again, kudos to Sony for bringing current technologies to a professional camera format, because this camera, very much like your smartphones, you have the ability to install or download applications to this camera. So there are in-camera applications that you can install here. Those apps vary widely. Sony has a Play Memory site where you're able to go and download various applications for the cameras. The applications range from skin softening application, time-lapse photography applications, various filters, even an application for creating those animated GIFs, those still photos that have movement within them. So again, kudos to Sony for being on the cutting edge of photography technology and keeping us current. In my opinion, when investing in a camera, not only are you purchasing or investing in the technology or your needs for today, but you really should be looking ahead as far as what are your possible needs going forward in the future. And Sony provides that for me. I feel like I am going to be very relevant and current moving forward in the photography world with this camera versus my experience with previous cameras or previous camera manufacturers. They're really putting the crunch on Nikon and Canon to step up their game here. So again, I love where I'm at with the Sony technology. Okay. The last thing I'd like to discuss, and maybe it's a little more subjective about this camera and my experiences with this camera, is as a photographer, you will go through various transitions throughout your experience or your career as a photographer. Those experiences ultimately lead to the fulfilling of your vision or your statement, what it is that you would want to reflect through your imagery. For me, I've always been drawn to very crisp, edgy, bright, colorful images that are dimensional, images that you look at and it makes you almost want to reach out and touch it because there is that element of realism there to the image. That is is and always has been kind of my personal image. With my previous cameras and software, I always felt like I was falling short of the vision I wanted for my images. I never could get my images quite there. Miraculously, I say, back in October of last year when I switched to using the Sony A7rii Mark II and switched to using Capture One, nothing really changed with my post-processing processes or my workflow. The same things I do now, I was doing previously, but with this camera and with Capture One, I've just seen a tremendous difference with my images and those images really being what I had envisioned for a few years. So I definitely credit this camera as a tool and the technology and software within Capture One. It just really aligns up to the way that I shoot and to the way that my post-processing processes. So never will a camera or software attribute to the creativity and your technical skills as far as capturing an image, but through my experience, they definitely can make the difference in bringing your vision to fruition. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Definitely, I invite any of you who shoot with this particular camera or any of the Sony cameras to share your experiences with me here as well as others. If you have any questions or any desires for me to delve into any of the specific functionality of the Sony cameras, I would love to do that and have that as a future video tutorial. Until the next time, get out there, get shooting, make every shot count.